In this video, we're going to talk about one more type of fastener, and that is snaps. Snaps typically come in either black or silver, but you can get them in other colors. They come in metal versions and in plastic versions. If you get the choice between a metal version and a plastic version, particularly for theater, you want to pick the metal versions because they are far more sturdy and they're less likely to break. And as you can see, they come in many sizes, and all of the snaps are a two-part system. And sometimes it's kind of confusing to be able to tell them apart. So the sides that go together look like this. Here they are from the sides. One has a flat base. This is called the positive or the snap. This is the snap side, positive side. Sometimes you'll hear it referred to as the male side, but most theater shops and spaces are shifting away from this term because, post, not snap, post. Post is a more accurate term, or you'll hear positive side because it's positive, it's sticking up, it's plus, it gives you more. This side is what it fits into, and this is the socket or the negative side. Sometimes referred to as the female side, but again, we are working towards shifting away from those terms. So positive or post, negative or socket, and they fit into each other like this. Boop. The hardest one to sew on, I think, is the socket side or the negative side because it's really easy to get confused about which is the right side. The correct side is the one with a hole because we need the post to go into it. I tend to start with the post because it's a little easier, and that is what I'm going to do in this video. I'm going to start with the post side or positive. I'm going to use that interchangeably. So when you have a snap system, you will usually have some sort of marking on your fabric. If you're using a large snap like this, you would have a small marking, and that goes right in the center of the post and right in the center of the socket is where those placement marks are. So we're going to start with the post side. I've already done my thread, and I'm doing a double thread because with all fasteners you want to use a double thread. It is stronger, more efficient, and just works better. So I want my knots to be on the same side as my snap because just like with the hooks and bars, we don't really want many stitches seen from this side. In buttons, it's a lot harder to get away with that. So I'm just gonna start by holding these posts in one hand, and I have folded my fabric, so I'm stitching through 2 layers. And I'm gonna take a running stitch scoop to start. Now, when we did the hooks and bars, we did kind of this crowning method, and you do something sort of similar. You want to do your stitches side by side as you go around these snaps. But if you don't do that and they're right on top of each other, that is fine. It is just as strong that way. It's just a lot prettier and nicer if you can get your stitches side by side. So I'm going from the outside, I'm scooping in, and my needle's coming out of the hole. See, this size snap has 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 holes. So we'll work our way around that. And we want to do about 3 to 4 stitches in each hole. So that was 3 stitches. This is my 4th stitch. So now what I want to do is I want to move over to the next hole. I don't want to tie a knot here. I just want to keep going. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down, and I'm going to come back up, but my needle's just going through a small amount. I'm actually coming back up underneath the snap and having my needle come out of this hole. So the stitch I'm taking through the fabric is small, but the direction of my needle is a longer jump. So this makes stitch number 4 for that one. So now that I'm working in this hole, I just keep going. And you can do the up-down method for this. I'm not going to demonstrate that at this time because you saw it on the other 2 videos. And this is a lot faster, and I have 6 holes to get through. So there's 3 stitches there. So if I go down and come back up, that makes this stitch the 4th one. So again, at least 4. I usually do more. Snaps are going to have more tension on them than hooks and bars and buttons because they're physically having to be pulled apart with more force and tension than other fasteners. So more stitches, the better. I am just doing the bare minimum for the purposes of this demonstration, so it goes by faster. Just keep doing that. You just go all the way around. I have 3 more holes left, and I think I'm going to do a quick speed run through this. Let's go. Okay, so I've gone through all of my holes, so now I need to tie a knot. But my thread is currently coming through a hole, so trying to get a knot close to the fabric right there would be really challenging. So all I'm going to do is just take a little tiny stitch right here beside the snap. I don't want to move too far away from the snap to do that, and then I'll tie off. One of the reasons I like to start with the post snap, not only is it easier to start with because it's easier to hold, it sits flat against the fabric, it also allows me to sew my socket side on without mistake, because what I can do is I can test, okay, so I've got my post here, there's my snap, so I need to make sure that this is not the side that's stitched, because that's what goes through, because I can't make that work. So for the sample, we want to be able to do our snaps together. So they're just going to be side by side like this. You don't want to sew them like this because then you can't get the fabric to fold over to snap them together. So spread them out enough that you can fold over to snap them. Okay, so I've got my thread here. I'm going to tie a new knot in my double thread. Got just enough thread here that I can do that. There we go. Okay, so we want to do the same thing. Now, a quick note about the snaps is the post side you would want to put on the exterior side. So if you have a garment that overlaps like this, and this is the part that is on the outside, so your audience is that way, you want to put the post side on this one because it's flat. It's not going to warp the fabric at all. This side, you want the socket side because there is a possibility of, as you stitch, this getting warped around it because this is not a flat shape here, okay? If you do it the other way, it's not the end of the world. You'll just need to redo it. Okay, so I'm gonna do the same thing before. I'm gonna hold it with one hand, and I'm gonna do the scooping method. The socket side goes on exactly like the post side. But because there is a curve to it, it can be a bit trickier to hold on to. And you do want to pull your stitches tight, but not so tight that they get warped around the curved edge, okay? So I do, like, I'll get started and I'll hold my fabric like this, and then I pull my fabric out to make sure that I'm not warping it. All right, where's the hole? There it is. Okay, so we do this the same way. So we're gonna speed run through this. Let's go. Okay, so you guys can see that I'm having a little bit of an issue here. So what has happened is whenever I was pulling my thread with the double thread, these two threads were not pulling through in the same space. My needle is sliding up and down, which has caused this loop to occur here. Now, you may have seen earlier that I was able to correct it over here, but I'm having a really hard time correcting it over here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pause real quick. I'm gonna cut this off and start over. But I'm gonna skip ahead in our video to this being done so you can see how this snaps together, because this goes together exactly like this one. Okay, so we're gonna pause real quick while I fix this mess that I've made. Okay, so now I have stitched on the socket side the same way as the post side. And you can kind of see how I did pull my stitches a little tight, and I did that intentionally, so you can kind of see how this fabric is warping around it a little bit. You can actually see an imprint of the socket underneath on the right side. And over here, there's nothing because it's flat. So see how my stitches going from one to another are decently small. If you have really long stitches going from one to another, that's fine. But if you end up needing to do lots of snaps, I would highly recommend working on trying to make these stitches as small as possible so they're not visible from the right side of the fabric, especially if we know that we're going to see that. Okay, so here's the test. Let's see if our snaps go together. These giant ones usually require a little extra force to put them together. Yep, there we go. And did we stitch them together well? Can they pull apart safely? Yep. If you pull these apart and the post or the socket comes off, you need to go back and sew it again because it's going to be doing a lot of this business. Lots of tension to separate them. And that's it for hand sewn fasteners.